Good morning. Welcome to the breakout session. And we'd like to tell a bit about our research we've done over a couple of years already, especially more than 18 months ago, where we started to think about the workplace environment as being a part of an ecosystem, which actually can boost your own performance. And to fire off that one, it's okay? There's somebody registering the line. My name is Wouter oosting. I'm sitting here together with Liz Nelson from the university. And to fire off this story, I'd like to begin with a picture of my father. And my father had about 7 heart attacks, okay? Because he always was smoking. And for the older ones, it was those Boston cigarettes, the blue package without the filter. So it gets into the lungs as quickly as you can. And the reason why he's done it was actually to cope with work stress. And this picture is actually in Hilversum. At that time it was called the Zonnestraal. So if you have your first heart surgery, they took you to Hilversum and then they clapped the body to get rid of the moisture inside the lungs. And we were staying in make it very Dutch, in a caravan. Typical Dutch live. And we were staying close by, and every day we visited my father to check his progress. And after 7 times, you can imagine what kind of damage he's done to, what kind of damage he's done to the heart. Now, before I jump off, I'd like you to stand up and look to the neighbor behind you. And in about 30 seconds time, tell to your neighbor behind you who you are and what you've done on a healthy initiative inside the office. Go ahead. Take someone. Miss Jordan. Sit down, please. Good thing is to share your business card with the person behind you, because it's also kind of networking, I think. But the other thing I find very fascinating, if you think about inside the office to do exercise, who actually can do it here? 1, 2, 3.
What kind of exercise?
Two.
You have a ball on which you can stand
on. If you take it further, if you look at the body, and that's where Liz will talk a bit about further, I never knew that the body is actually made to hunt bears with spears. And if you take it from a corporate perspective, a body perspective, emotion or not moving at all doesn't help us. In fact, we should be more about movement, not exercising or gym, but motion is actually quite important as long as other topics in there. And if you take, we are real estate advisors, so we look to bricks, let's say not to people, and for a long time we've just been focusing on the bricks. But if you take the trends on a more global scale, we're starting to shift our focus from stones, if you will, to more what can we do to help you. And if you take it into perspective, my father, he started at 13 at Aangast in Amsterdam, but even the factory's not there, there's nothing there anymore, just domestic or residential. And he left at 65 going on pension and done loads of stuff in there. And if I look to where I am, which is more about flexibility and working for different companies and more about matrix organizations, so I have a hierarchical boss and I have a project boss. And if I look to my son, which is 24, he has 2 jobs. He's doing study, he has 2 jobs. The first one is to earn enough money, let's say, to pay for his life, which is working behind customs at Schiphol. He earns 50 cents on an hour more. And the second job is where he has his heart brand connection, if you'd like to call it. So he's more about passion and how you find a meaningful life in connection with work, which is really different. And if I look to the workplace environment, for many years we've been creating workplaces called activity-based working, facilitate what people do. But I think if you look towards the future, it's more about building a rewarding place, which is a place where you want to go. And taking it a bit further, we've done a study. It's called Smart Office 2040. So if we look into the future, it's not just one place, but we actually see it's more about the city of work. And it can start in the car if you have those Teslas who don't drive up to anything. But you can actually have conference calls or start doing work inside the car, and I think it will be more. And if you think about the office environment or a place, it's almost like in retail. The day kind of settings are not the ones which facilitate what we do. And perhaps more about a virtual connection to other countries. Perhaps it's more about collaboration. So the place you are looking for actually should be more facilitating that single aspect of that element of the things you'd like to do. So to us it seems to be more about the city of work, be more flex or hubs, if you'd like to call it, and the place where you all gather should be a kind of meaningful place where we team up. And the good thing about those places, we started to shift away from facilitating what people do. It's more about what kind of rewarding place can you build. And that's where, if I take that to my father, if you think about how do we take care of our own people, one of the most upcoming elements in there is wellness into the workplace. And some of the things in there is that we're all getting older, but nobody wants to be old. And we all want to be vital, but we all need to be sure that we have the time and the ability actually to do that. And if you take it into account, during the research we have been wearing wearables, and I wanted to know how much exercise or how much activities, because it's not just an exercise, would I do inside the office. Then I bought me a jawbone, and the recommendation was to take 10,000 steps a day. Everybody has a smartphone, so if you want to check it, you can do it yourself. Working full at the office would never get me more than 25% on the total. I would still eat 3 meals, and at the end of the day I was completely exhausted. But from a body perspective, it was not the case. So if you think about how healthy you are, and if we spend 10 hours on a chair, are we then really helping us? No. And the other thing is in terms of war for talent, so what you're offering to young talents. Do you take that one into your account? Is this the workplace that you do, or do you want the workplace to help you to that? And the other thing is that in the terms of the rise of being aware on health, I think that's, I've seen it over the last 3 years rising. And personally, I was trying to find more kind of data sources which substantiates those kind of trends. But if I look to the RE,
You just got off stage.
so if you think about the REFIM, if you see those rates, healthcare and the cost of it, it's 70 billion, going to 170 billion, and somebody needs to take up the bill for it. And the other thing is, if I go to the doctor, I had a frozen shoulder. Well, I've done a search on the internet, and I find an online doctor, and I went through the menu chart, and he said, well, you have a frozen shoulder. Went to the doctor, and, well, I have a frozen shoulder. He said something else. No, I've done this test on the internet, so I'm pretty sure I had a frozen shoulder. So we're becoming more aware about things we do. We do a checkup first, we vote before you go to a doctor. So I think the technology actually helps us, can help you to think about it. It makes it more visual, if you will. So the idea was a long time ago, more than 18 months. If you think about facilitating what people do, which is all about the activity-based work environment, if you start to add the human component into that, would you then be able to still deliver the same kind of solution, or would it be different? And what we've learned, our quest was actually, instead of facilitating what people do, can you facilitate how well people do it? In short, can you help people to do it 1 time right instead of 2 times wrong? For that reason, we started to create a topic, which is the title, Healthy Offices. And that's where I met Liz from the University of Twente. And the first thing we talked about was a movie, pretty funny perhaps, but it's a movie called Moneyball. Somebody know it? And in that movie, they were trying to find a connection tree data and runs and how to figure out how you can get the best out of people, whilst not being able to buy the best people money could buy. And if you take that equation, out of the 10 people in baseball, 3 of them are star players, and the rest is just facilitating, okay? And the idea was in our research, if you think about not the 3-star players, but let's focus on the people who are supporting them. Okay? And if you take their performance, let's say 65% are going together, which is not productivity, but it's performance. We said to ourselves, are we able then to boost that kind of performance? Because if you take 10 people and you want to produce 100%, you still need to hire more resources to get the job done. So instead of hiring more people, let's raise the bar for those people. Are we able then to help them? Which means you have to hire, if you want to get to 100%, less people. And the other one you can help by thinking about business innovation or not hiring at all. It's exactly up to you what you want to achieve there. So that was the kind of the equation we had at that time. And blue is not male and female, it's just a matter of color, okay? So, let's talk a bit about the research. Please.
Thank you. I think I need the mic,
Okay.
probably, right? That helps. Hi, I'm Liz. It's lovely to be here. I wanted to talk a little bit about employment and where this research started. This research started quite early for me, actually, early in my career. Early in my career, I was actually hired by the best advertising agency in the world at the time to do research. And it was quite an experience. I was working for the biggest brands in the country at that time: Starbucks, Nike, Target, Coca-Cola. I got to meet famous athletes, celebrities, working on lots of amazing projects, going to great parties. I loved it. It was amazing. But what happened, and what's happening to a lot of employees right now, was that I started working nights, I started working weekends, my head became foggy, took me longer to do things. I started having a bigger and bigger coffee in the morning, and you've seen American coffees anyway, right? It's like a flower vase that you just walk around with, and a wine at night to go to bed. But it wasn't until I fell asleep during a bikini wax that I realized that I was sick. And that I was burning out at the job I loved, the job I was committed to, the job that was everything to me. So when I left advertising, I said that I didn't want this for myself anymore. I wanted to go into research. I wanted to go into proactive healthcare. And somewhere along the line, I also realized I didn't want this for anyone else either. So I got back into academia. I started working on my master's and my PhD and put together something that I think really was special. I worked with the university in a very unique way, with the business department, the neurocognitive psychology department, and the biomedical department, to look holistically at employee health through wearable technologies, through surveys, through experiments. And we developed something for a long-term survey, or long-term experiment with CBRE, with quite a few people, over 120, and looking at employee health from a health perspective, a psychology perspective, and a business perspective. And when we got started with CBRE, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that we were going to get some answers on this. So one thing that we did in this study is we separated changes in the environment by month. So we didn't overlap anything. 1 month we focused simply on nutrition. And this was a big part about caffeine, the drug of choice for offices, and sugar. So both of these things are very sensitive to people, but they also affect the brain in a really interesting way. So sugar, if you look at the scan, affects the brain almost exactly the same as cocaine does. It raises our serotonin levels, makes us happy, raises our dopamine levels, calms us down, but it also reinforces the desire for more. And then it also puts us on the insulin wave. We all have had that. We think we're good, we've had some sugar, and then suddenly 2 hours later, we need some more sugar. And so it snowballs into this. What we did with our nutrition month was we promoted healthy snacks in the afternoon to fight the sugar curb that we all have around 2 o'clock. And we also promoted water. One thing we did not do, which was really hard for me, was to tell people why, like what I'm telling you right now, why we were encouraging water, why we were encouraging nutrition, because we wanted to know if we could just change the environment and see if people changed with us. And they did. It was amazing. Before we started, everyone, for the most part, was drinking more than the doctor recommended amount of caffeine per day, and eating a lot of sugary snacks, and not drinking a lot of water. We got the water drink up, we got the caffeine down, and we got people to eat less sugar throughout the day. How we got people to drink more water was we put these beautiful carafes of water with cucumbers, mints, oranges, just this colorful, bright thing that you actually saw before you saw the coffee machine, the brown coffee machine, which actually looks kind of depressing next to these. And I did an experiment this month also, which I modeled after a couple of past experiments. So I was expecting good results, but I was surprised by what we found. I did an experiment where I had some people eat a moorkoop for breakfast. Not any Dutch people or some non-Dutch people. It's a cream-filled donut. They're delicious. And then I fed a very healthy green smoothie to some other people. I talked to them for about 25 minutes, waited for it was in their blood system. Then I had them perform a very simple accuracy test, where I had them try to do as well as they could and just as accurate as they could in the time allowed. The difference between the moorkoop people and the healthy smoothie was a 45% difference in task accuracy. Now, the biggest argument with healthy offices is, what's the return on investment? What are we really doing with this? And if you think about maybe 1 out of 2 things that your employees are doing is wrong or not as accurate as it could be, that's the best argument for return on investment that I can think of. One of the other months that we focused on was natural spaces and green areas. Now, when we think about this, we all go to the ocean and we suddenly start to relax and sort of meditate, and we hear the waves, and I'm a water person, so maybe you're more of a forest person. But natural spaces also do the same for us. We're not supposed to be in cement boxes. We do really, really well around plants. And one of the things that they've found in the past is that in hospitals, patients do a lot better. This is a hospital in the Netherlands where you can actually receive chemo outside. And they've seen that patients do better, they're happier, and they heal faster if they're around these natural images or natural plants. One of the most exciting things about this for offices is it does not need to be a real plant. It can be, and it does not need to be a beautiful plant. So one of the things I've read in the past studies, and I love that they've included pictures, are there some hideous plants or pictures of plants on offices or in, not in offices, in hospital rooms where you think, God, I would hate to look at that thing, especially when I'm sick, how depressing. But they do better. We're trained and our body feels more natural around natural environments. So when we focused on green areas, we also saw a great amount of increased performance. People were happier, people were healthier, they did better on the experiment. It was a fantastic success. We also focused on light, which in the Netherlands is worth everything, right? We love our light. And what we learned about light was quite shocking. So a lot of offices, the vast majority of offices, are actually the best lighting to have right before you go to bed. They're a yellow light, they're overhead, so they don't hit the full extent of the back of the eye, which tells the brain it's the afternoon, you should be awake, that's going on. And it's dim. It's about half the amount of light that it actually should be in the afternoon. And this is the vast majority of offices. So we took the light in the office and we lowered the light so that it would hit the back of the eye, communicating it's daytime, you shouldn't be sleepy, you should be working. We doubled the intensity of the light and we made it into a blue light. But if we had just done that, we probably would have seen some pretty negative effects. Because what happens when you're in a really stimulating, bright environment? you're awake. I was up super late last night because the sun went down too late for me. I said, oh, right, sleep. So we needed to get people into a rhythm that had to do with the day. We needed to have a lower and a more yellow light in the morning, so it wasn't shocking, so they could warm up to the day a little bit. And most importantly, we needed to have a lower and a yellow light in the evening so that they could go home, relax, and sleep. And then you're snowballing in a positive way that way. Active workspaces. This was a really fun and very visual month. We put tons of things in the office. We put those walking treadmills, which I can't use to save my life, even in flats. They're very hard to walk on and type. I don't know if anyone's tried them. Yoga balls, we had balancing balls, we had walking meetings around the office. We planned certain aspects of that. And some of them were a great success, some of them were a little bit trickier, but what we found is that getting people up and moving was really, really powerful and beneficial for people. Doctors recommend getting up multiple times per hour, and they've done plenty of studies to say that what this does to our brain, what this does for us. There was a large study on females, actually, where they had females report how often they got up during the day. Females who mostly sat for the most part of the day were about, I think, 70% more likely to have symptoms of depression or be clinically depressed than women who simply got up a few times a day from their desks and walked around. Not a long walk, just coffee machine, that kind of thing. It's so beneficial for us, and there's a good reason that doctors are saying that sitting is the new smoking. And getting up, collaborating, talking with other people, the social aspects of active workspaces are also very good for us. Talking to someone face-to-face versus replying to their email, which might have been a little bit aggressive and that kind of thing. Getting people to talk to each other. We also focused on mindfulness, which is incredibly interesting for me because as an American, mindfulness is the end-all be-all right now. Teaching people to meditate. We're all going to learn how to meditate, and then it's going to be great, right? And there's good reason for that they want to believe that. Johns Hopkins have found that mindfulness meditation can actually soothe anxiety, depression, and pain to the same level that they expect antidepressants to. I mean, that's fantastic. But the problem with mindfulness being the solution is that in worlds where, especially in the US, where people are working 60, 80-hour weeks, where they're living in stressful or unhealthy situations, mindfulness is like meditating in a house on fire. It'll calm you down for a little bit, but it's not going to stop you from going up in flames. And we wanted to prove this with an experiment, the same experiment as the Morcope, where I rotated people between a meditative experience and a stressful experience. And what we found is that indeed, people perform much better in a mindfulness situation. However, within seconds, and in a stressful situation, people perform wildly worse. So the two stressors, you might be curious, that I did to these poor people were, the first was singing in public. So speaking in public is the #1 fear among individuals, actually over death. Death is 2. Speaking in public is 1. The university has found that singing in public pushes us a little bit further. So I pretended to record them and made them sing in public and then had them perform a task. The difference between the meditative experience and singing in public was 18%. The second thing that I did was I had them defend their work and say why they were better than their colleagues in front of their colleagues. The difference between that and the meditative experience was 30%. So that teaches us 2 things. Meditation and mindfulness are incredibly useful, but a stressful work situation is just as strong. So if you are having people meditate and sending them out into this stress-based or this fear-based management, it will take minutes, if not seconds, to undo all of the good things that you've done. we found out a lot of things in our study. We found that people performed better, they felt happier, healthier, their interviews provided really good results. We saw that people took home a lot of what they had at the office, and we saw this amazing snowball effect where people were suddenly interested in healthy eating at home, they were interested in being more active at home, getting their families involved. It was incredibly powerful. But one of the things that I wanted to put specific point on is that we measured people's mental effort every day. So mental exhaustion is the #1 indicator of burnout within the scientific community. It's the best indicator of that. And so we measured people's mental effort every day for 7 months. And what we saw was that our control group was actually very much the same as a lot of employees these days. They were getting closer and closer to burnout, to getting into a work routine that wasn't sustainable, that wasn't healthy. And they're the lower group there. And what we did with the healthy offices was we actually interrupted that. We stopped the burnout. In many cases, we raised it. So we stopped the cycle of burnout and really improved people's overall feeling and performance, which, if you think about turnover rates, burnout, they're very expensive problems for companies to have. So this is just something I wanted to end on. If you're curious about my bikini wax story or any of the other things in our study, I actually wrote a book called The Healthy Office Revolution. It's still not out yet, but as this is kind of a premiere for CBRE, CBRE would love to offer you the book and give it to you as a gift. If you want to put your business cards on the table here, we'll make sure that you get a signed copy of the book when it comes out. And we're just summing up. You gonna sum up? I think so. Yeah.
She's just doing such a great job.
Strong finish, right?
So the research is just for us a start in terms of what can you do with it. So what we learned from the research, what we said to ourselves is there's always a human component and there's always an environment component. Why not think about connecting them together? So if you do a pre-measurement in terms of assessing the space and the people and the performance of the people, the varieties and the change we've done in our office, the light, nourishment, so the 5 concepts, you can actually measure yourself if you do a post-measurement, well, did we really increase or decrease? So if you want to find out what it can do for you, there is a scan available. What we learned in this case is that shifting from bricks to people, we feel that's the right way for a real estate advisor to go to. And the other thing I think is important to stress is that when we've done our headquarters in Los Angeles, and we had a discussion with Delos, who's actually founder of the WELL and the WELL certification process. One of the interesting persons we met was Deepak Chopra, and the interesting part he said is your body is able to repair itself. If you break your arm, or if you have the flu, or if you have a burnout, in every occasion your body is almost every time able to repair itself. Now the question is yourself, the room we are in today, look around you, it's designed by architects, it's engineered by engineers, so where's the doctor who tell me what kind of components are in there to actually help me to boost my own performance? And sadly enough, the answer is no. It's not been treated as such. The Neuwerk standard for architects among us is from 1965, and to date we still use it. And the other part is that if you take the results from the research, which is not just the perceptional stuff, but also the experiments. So we made people read text, highlight one letter, and measure the time and the accuracy in there. So also from an objective perception, you can really see there's a difference to be gained. And if you take that into account, in our situation, in our office, we had a presentation to our board. It's about 0.7 of the hour they can save a day. So if you really want to be an attractive employer, give a contract for 8 hours, but ask them to go home after 7 hours. I don't think you have an issue about hiring people. Sorry. He still thinks about it.